really like to tell him personally, just if it weren't for him, we might not be here. So.
Well, you'd think it'd be hard to top those pictures and stories, but not in this wild winter. By mid-January, the weather took another turn. Snow, cold ice, and then rain, all combining to create the worst flooding in the Northwest in more than 30 years. We'll pick things up January 18th with a surprise snow.
Hit Clark County around lunchtime, and in about 30 minutes, an inch had already stuck to the ground.
A familiar sound on West Burnside as falling snow piled up and packed down, leaving nothing but thick ice on the steep road.
The weather was also tough on pedestrians. It isn't too comfortable walking around in the cold slush, especially if you were like many who didn't know what was coming and really weren't prepared.
Everybody's just stopped all the way through to downtown. I've been on the road here since 11 o'clock.
And Warden wasn't the only one. Despite the bumper sticker, these folks weren't going anywhere.
I was hoping you'd come help me.
The traffic stopped and I have rear-wheel drive. No chains. Stupid woman driver.
On a normal workday, Pioneer Courthouse Square and the rest of downtown Portland would have been full of people. So some say it's good that this snowstorm hit on a weekend.
For some, fun in the snow meant a good cardiovascular workout.
White flakes began falling before sunrise, and by the time most people began to stir, roads were blanketed with several inches of snow. It created a slippery problem for some drivers who ignored the state police's warning to stay home unless absolutely necessary.
It was slow going on the Banfield as well, and again, more semi-trucks blocked the path.
This is the problem. Heavy, snow-laden trees and branches falling and then snapping power lines. It happened all over Portland today. PGE says at one point, 50,000 homes were without power.
In northeast Portland, this tree toppled when the ground gave way under the weight of the wet, heavy snow on the limbs.
Commented to my daughter, it sounded like some branches on somebody's roof. I hoped it wasn't mine. But it turned out to be worse than that.
Edmund not only lost a tree, but his company van. Neighbors pitched in to help remove the big Doug fir and clear the street.
It was also slow going on 205 at Clackamas, forcing many to chain up.
Frankly, I don't have a whole lot of experience driving in the snow.
In Milwaukee, one driver got all the experience he could handle and more.
I wasn't going that fast, maybe 40 miles an hour, but it's all it takes, I guess.
And for this guy, getting around on a set of motorized skis was the way to go. But Portlanders weren't the only ones having a rip-roaring time. Plenty of four-legged friends were out and about getting their little feet wet.
These boys not only built a snowman, but thanks to a little flavored syrup, ate him.
A masterpiece. A masterpiece devoured.
You know what?
On Highway 26 near Sandy, cars like this one left on its top reminded other motorists to drive carefully. Cars were being pulled out of ditches and rescued from icy roads.
I was trying to switch lanes and just lost the front end of my car. Lost the steering.
As winds picked up, snow swirled over the top of the roads, making it for icy driving and tough to see.
It was not a great Sunday drive for these people trying to get around near West Burnside this morning. Without any traction devices, the car tried to get up the hill, but kept sliding down.
Clark County got off to an unusually quiet start. The icy Sunday morning kept many indoors. This is what it was like walking earlier today.
Most people decided it wasn't worth driving on the icy streets. They stayed at home. And those who tried to get around by walking also found out it was a slippery one.
I was coming this way, he was coming this way. I see him, you know, you can see his tracks right here almost.
5 people were involved, 2 of them critically injured. You can see the ice made it even more difficult for emergency service crews to get this gurney into the ambulance.
The foul weather was foul for one of our fine feathered friends. It just wasn't ducky for this duck that kept slipping and sliding on the ice. After the freeze comes the thaw. And already there are signs of high water.
Well, right here we had water going across both lanes, and I just unplugged the catch basin.
You seen a lot of that?
Yeah, we're going to get more before the day's over.
And before the week is over, the flooding may be on local rivers instead of local roads. We expect 3 to 6 inches of rain over the next few days. That, along with snowmelt, may be too much for some streams.
The rivers that drain from the Coast Range, the North Coast basins and Central Coast basins, and then also some of the ones that are draining from the Cascades. We could be seeing something in the Clackamas and Sandy.
Frozen yesterday, today the Sandy River flows. Below bankful for now.
Oh, I've never seen it like this before. This is the first time I see it, even with any ice on it. It was flooded here a while back, but the last time we had that storm, it was clear up here to the top.
Over on the Columbia, the ice flows are fading and the river still has plenty of room for meltwater. The Willamette is warmer, no slush to be seen. So even with the heavy warm rain and the melting snow, these giants are not likely to flood. But the rivers and streams that feed them have a much smaller tolerance for winter's next onslaught.
They've been at this 3 days in Union, ever since Mother Nature took a detour down 10th Street.
Just with the river flow coming up, it was backing up to the house, and hopefully this will keep it out of the garage. As you can see right on the house, we're within about 2 inches of whatever's going to happen there.
Carol Lee Dixon usually watches traffic roll down her quiet avenue, but today it's a river flooding her yard.
I just never expected it to get this far. I thought we'd be able to divert it. And it's diverting, but it's getting deeper.
And like 6 of her neighbors, 3 feet deep in the house. 5 days of 20 below temperatures turned Catherine Creek into an Arctic ice floe, 10 feet thick. But underneath, a powerful stream had to go somewhere. Here it's being diverted to save more homes. Normally, this irrigation ditch would just be knee-deep, but since the creek is completely frozen over, all the water is being diverted down this way. As a result, it's flooding the homes. But in its own way, it's also bringing the community together. Everyone pitches in with sandbags to stop the flooding, measuring their success by inches, and thankful for good neighbors.
Everybody pitched in. People that don't even live in this area, from other side of town, came out to help us. And we appreciate, and we'd do the same for them.
No one can ever remember anything like this, but then it only happens once every 500 years.
The big thaw is making a big splash. A stream that empties into Rock Creek swamps West Union Road near 185th. Motorists simply muscle their way through the water, spilling over the road because of heavy rain and clogged drainage pipes. Even veteran road crews are impressed with the icy thaw.
It's pretty neat. But probably the aftermath ain't gonna be so great.
Could this trickle eventually turn into a torrent? Experts at the National Weather Service say there is a possibility the warm, heavy rains could eventually spark widespread flooding.
People making the morning commute were caught unaware that Fano Creek had come up so much. You could see drivers making the decision whether to forge ahead and drive through the high water or turn around and try a different way.
Floodwaters are causing major headaches for people living in a West Side apartment complex. 30 units in the Cedar Mill Crossing apartments flooded this morning. The water continues to rise. Cedar Mill Creek is normally only a few inches deep. Today it has risen to more than 8 feet.
It looks like this is the first wave of a series of storms headed our way.
Natalie Daly thought it was a nightmare, but she wasn't dreaming. Police were outside her home at 3 in the morning in a rowboat.
They had a boat. They had a boat, a raft in my driveway. It was outrageous. It's raining like it's going to be the last flood of the century. He climbed into the boat, and they rode us out of our driveway. It was absolutely astonishing.
She is one of 120 people evacuated in the darkness of morning. By daylight, much of the water had receded, but the steady rains had wetlands and farms looking like huge lakes. This is Seehofer Flats, and when it floods, you can see why they call it that. But even as the water lapped up around her farmhouse, Mrs. Seehofer wasn't worried.
Oh, I don't think it will. Never did before. And if it does, well, that's what's going to happen.
Officials have yet to determine the scope of the damage.
I think this is one of the fastest floods we've had in a long time. It literally came up overnight.
While more rain is predicted, many residents who were yanked from their homes are praying that it won't fall as fast so that they can clean up and dry out without ever having to go through this again.
It's not just the wet carpeting and wet flooring, it's the things you left behind. You can't take the dog and the cat with you, you know? So it's a very scary night.
The floodwater came from up the street, where driving was tough. A car left high and dry from raging floodwaters pouring down the hillside.
My neighbor's in bad shape. Every time he does overflow, it goes down into his property, and it looks like he's getting it worse than normal.
The power of the gushing Malala takes down tall, healthy trees. Sure is. Washing them far downstream.
The way we describe the Malala is it comes up fast and it goes down fast.
Joan Nason has lived along the Malala for 25 years. You can watch as the river starts soaking her backyard and heads towards her home.
Take a look at these pictures of the river. It's at Mill Dam near Estacada. Look at this. The Clackamas River running near its highest level in 10 years, spewing water over the spillway of the dam. The River Mill Dam generates power for PGE. What a difference a day makes. Yesterday, it was the ice we were worried about waking up. Some of my neighbors saw them slipping getting that morning paper.
Was that only yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a difference it makes. Let's go to Curran Snipes again. Curran, you probably remember the difference between yesterday and today, right?
You stay right there, Curran. We're going to compare. This is Curran yesterday. And look at that, Curran, your slip sliding away there. Tonight, you're wet. Yesterday, you were sore. You took your little fall there.
What do you prefer, Curran?
I think I'll take this nice wet weather any day.
No doubt about it, homeowners are taking a beating this winter. First, it was wind, whipping trees on top homes. Then, a deep freeze paralyzed people's plumbing from within. Now it's floods lapping at the front door. Tom Jaffe doesn't live anywhere near a stream, but the ground is so saturated it's even backed up his French drain.
It's not handling it. It's overflowing and going down into the basement.
He had this sump pump on most of the night. That kept his basement from flooding. Marie Matzies thought she had a famous river flowing into her basement.
Too much water. It flooded over the top here, and then came down over the sides like Niagara Falls. There's a walk under here someplace.
Matzy says she's found cleanup after the flood can be the toughest, especially since last week's big chill left her without water. Now she's left with a big mess.
We expected some high water with all the rain and the snow melt, but no one could have predicted this type of flooding. High water is rushing across several roads and through dozens of communities, soaking everything in the way. And this may be only the beginning, because we could get another half a foot of rain in the next few days.
Above Highway 30, the hills are alive with waterfalls. The highway has been closed for most of the day. The road is covered by water or mud. Businesses are little islands. There's too much water. It has to go somewhere. Roads look like rivers of thick mud. The St. John's Bridge is closed. You can't get to it anyway. Elsewhere, a very muddy Johnson Creek is filling its banks. How about Mount Scott Creek? Yes, that's supposed to be a creek drowning the parking lot. You can see the Clackamas River is also a threat, while the Tualatin River has turned farmland into a floodplain. Take a look at how neighborhoods are waterlogged from Dawson Creek. Look at the home in the center under construction. That's really waterfront property with the waters lapping at the door. Even the multi-million-dollar Nike campus is surrounded by dirty water.
Never seen anything like it. Water from here clear
In Marion County, water over the road isn't the only problem. Part of Highway 22 is starting to fall apart. But when the sign says, "Be prepared to stop," Lisa Pattison and Jim Lind had no idea what they were in for.
We came around the corner and there was this huge canyon hole. I mean, you could fit, a Mack truck in there and it'd get lost.
Just off Highway 22, a 70-foot section of Little North Fork Road is missing. They were the first to notify authorities.
I thought, oh my God, seconds before this, I mean, had we been hurrying up a little bit, quicker to get home, we could have been driving over this when it fell in the river even.
Hey.
Marion County Public Works crews were also stunned by this enormous hole in the road.
I've never seen one of our roads do this. That's a big hole.
So Jim and Lisa won't make it home tonight. They don't know when they'll make it back home. They've already tried 2 alternate routes, no luck.
Even going home and taking everything for granted, you can't do that. You come upon something where you might not be here right now.
One minute this was a passable highway, and the next second it's just a huge hole and it's impassable, and it just, boom, it happens, and it's just incredible, the power of the earth.
As night falls, the waters keep rising. Several creeks and rivers in our area have flooded or threatened to flood. Even areas that aren't traditional flood spots are washed out. Residents are turning to sandbags in an effort to protect their property. But will it be enough?
Now take a look at this. You can tell how high the water is behind me, but I'm going to use this spotlight to point out what's happening just on the bridge, just below where we are. You can see the creek now is barely making it underneath that bridge.
And over here, we can see just how close Salmon Creek is to take it out to Robinson's house. This is Salmon Creek right here. They've been all day long putting sandbags along here. And right down along the line here, you see it's been holding a little bit. But this gets, look at there, it's just now starting to come up over it. That's how the waters have been rising, and these sandbags that they've had all day thinking that it's holding back, not sure at all it's gonna work, but they are gonna bring in some more through the night, and everybody's just keeping their fingers crossed that sandbagging had a little bit of help from Mother Nature, that these waters will start receding instead of continuing to rise.
Let's go to Mark Hass, who's on the Sandy River. Mark, bring us up to date on what's happening there.
Well, Julie, the Sandy River is now, according to Troutdale Police, at its highest level since 1964. And old-timers around here know very well what that Christmas flood in Portland was all about 26 years ago, back in 1964.
It is a black and white version of today's flood damage. December 1964, Portland Harbor reached 30 feet higher in surrounding areas.
How high was the water here, Bill? It was 32.5 inches, as near as I can find out, according to watermark on my lace curtain on the front door and inside on the wall.
Thousands of Oregonians were evacuated. The state was declared a disaster area, but even the experts could not foresee it would happen again so soon.
Actually, this flood would occur about once every 200 years. I would say that perhaps happen about as often as your next-door neighbor's wife having triplets twice in a row.
Now, 32 years later, rivers are raging, dams are stressed, and people's homes and businesses are in jeopardy. The other great floods. In 1894, Portland Harbor reached 28.7 feet. People made their way through Portland's downtown in rowboats, and the fire department used a barge to make its way through town. In 1923, another big hit when Portland Harbor reached 25.3 feet. A similar flood in 1948. But most